Speaking of history, we are celebrating our own this year. AOI turns 160 in December. And as we've been celebrating that, we've been trying to get to know a few of our founders. So far, we've talked about these gentlemen, Taylor, Bradley, Force, and Callan. And as I know, Force is still my favorite. That's my favorite photo of that anybody has. And I think we all feel him every time we look at that. We do have in our newsletters, we do have little capsules of their bios, but you can also rewatch any of them that you missed because Bill Brown has kindly put them not only on our website, but he has separated them out and put them on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in any of the particular founders, you can find them there. Today, we are going to be talking about our AOI's first corresponding secretary, John Carroll Brent. And a little brief bio for him. He's the second of the founders that we've talked about who were both born in DC and died in DC. So he was born in DC in 1814. His father, William, who you see on the upper left, William Brent, he served as clerk of the circuit court and clerk of the criminal court for over 40 years. And he is identified as one of the earliest residents of Washington, D.C. As you might be able to tell from his name, he is related on his father's side to the Carroll family of Maryland. So two of his great uncles were Daniel Carroll, who signed both the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, and was a representative in the very first Congress of the U.S. He was also one of the first three commissioners of D.C. to develop D.C. Another great uncle was John Carroll, the first American Catholic bishop and archbishop and founder of Georgetown University. His uncle Robert Brent, who's on the slide there, was the first mayor of the city of Washington. So he's well connected. As you can see on the slide, well, you can't read it quite particularly well there, but he worked primarily as a lawyer. He died from a kidney ailment at the age of 61. His funeral was at St. Peter's on Capitol Hill. Same parish, different building as the current St. Peter's. And he's buried at Mount Olivet Cemetery in Northeast, across from the Arboretum. AOI's member, Dr. John Bond Blake, was one of his pallbearers. And Dr. Blake is one of our current board members, Sherry Sewell's great-great-grandfather. So we are closer to all of this history than we actually sometimes do think. And you can see, you can't really see it on here, but it does mention in his obituary that he was secretary. He was a founding member and secretary of AOI. He left a large paper trail, and that's going to include the first known mention of football at Georgetown University, which was then Georgetown College. So this is in 1830, and you remember that his great uncle is John Carroll. So I'm guessing he had an in for getting into Georgetown University. That was pretty good. The school was founded in 1789, and this is 1830. So you can see it's still pretty pastoral at this time in 1830. The other image that you see is a letter that he sent to his sister describing his football and trying to explain what football is. If you can't read it, he says, "We play football at present. What I mean by football is that it is a kind of leather bag in which is placed a bladder filled with air, which causes it to bounce up very high and is kicked about by the boys. I have had my feet skinned and bruised by it very often. I am lame with one I have received today." So football causing injuries at Georgetown at least since 1830. He was also very involved with the Washington Monument Society. This is obviously a very important issue to AOI members because we had so many members of AOI that were also members of the Washington Monument Society. He served as its secretary for 30 years. And that's going to include in 1854 when he signed his name here to this appeal that he sent out asking people to please donate money so that we can finally finish the Washington Monument. Because it had stalled. Again, I think most of us know, you can see the color difference on the Washington Monument, and it had stalled for many years because of funding before it was finally completed. There's a good article by AOI member John Lockwood, historian John Lockwood, on the archives website that you can read that gives a whole history of the Washington Monument Society. So if you're at all interested in how they raised money, what problems that they had, you can take a look at that. You can see in the middle is one of the certificates that you would get if you donated money to the Washington Monument. They would send you this very elaborate certificate that was there. Another current AOI member, because again, everything is connected these days, Pat McCarthy. His ancestor, Jacob Weimeyer, was a vice president of AOI, a stonemason and a contractor, and his company provided the stone and helped build that second portion of the Washington Monument. It's circled on the bottom left, but you can see his name. His company had set up at the site to build that, and you can still see the company's name in some of these old pictures. Brent would go on to be a prolific writer. He wrote a biography of his great uncle, John Carroll, pamphlets and books supporting the Smithsonian. He was a huge supporter of the fine arts in Washington, spoke several languages. You can find his papers and his diary at both DC History Center and Library of Congress. So he left a very good trail for us to follow.